are. This is the first bean plot I planted this year. I forgot what day. I'll put it up on the screen when I planted it. It's just really important to plant beans as early as you can if you want to get the highest yield, because these things are probably the best looking beans I've ever grown. This year I did have some really good looking beans in our backyard, but those ones are just as tall, but they don't have as many pods because these ones were put in I think about two and a half weeks before the ones at home. And I loaded this field up with fertilizer. It needed it because the soil was super low in potash and potassium. A lot of our soil here on this property is low in that, so that's why I really spread the fertilizer thick. So this is what it looks like down in here. You can see they're all dropping off their leaves and stems pretty fast. You can see these things are just loaded with pods when you look down the row. Look at that. This is going to be awesome. This is the biggest section of beans, of solid beans that we've ever planted. It's pretty close to 1 acre. Doesn't sound like a whole lot, but like I said, we don't really need a whole lot of acreage to hold the deer well because there's so much ag around. Look at that. See these beans, the whole field's waist high. It's just unbelievable. Like I said, there was hardly any deer browse on this food plot at all, just simply because right next door, the neighbors, there's like maybe a 10-15 acre bean field there, and then it kind of wraps around. There's another 10 or 15 acres, and there might even be beans on the other side, way over there. But last year we had that end where the corn is down there. That's where I'm gonna take you to next. That side right there, I mean, this was all corn where the beans is, and where the corn is now, that's about 1/3 of an acre, and that was beans. And that got hit pretty hard last year because all these other fields were all corn last year, so those were the only beans. But since there's tons of beans out here, it all grew really nicely without being damaged by the deer. Yeah, I'll take you to the corn next. I don't want to make this a 20-minute video. Well, here we are in the corn now. This stuff turned out just as good as last year's corn. I'm just really pleased with how everything's turned out so far, except in the corner of this field down here at the point, there was a lot of coons in here, or they took down a lot of corn down there. I'll take you down there so you can see. But right here where I'm standing, this is probably the best looking area of the plot. There's like no coon damage at all right here. Just like a lot of other fields I planted this year, like I said, our corn planter is set up at 38-inch rows. So we got a 38-inch row and then a tight row, which is probably 24 inches. And then we got the 38-inch row and then a tight row. I think you can see like right here, there's like a huge gap of nothing. The closest plants are about 1 foot. You can fit your boot right between the plants. So I think next year I can definitely double plant everything, because you can see boom, 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 boom. If you look at a farmer's or a normal ag field around here, they'll have another one. You can just barely sneak your foot in between each plant like this. They'll have another one inside each one of these. So I could definitely double plant everything at these 20 to 25-inch rows, and I'm sure I'd get more plants per acre and a higher yield out of it. I just probably won't get as big a cobs, although this field didn't really produce giant cobs, but it produced pretty good sized cobs. You can see the weed control was a little rough in this field. There's quite a few weeds in here, but it really didn't slow down the corn too much, really, I don't think. But down here is where the coon damage is. Alright, you can see this big mess down here. Look at how empty this field is. And all these brown stalks are ones that don't have any cobs on it anymore. And all this knocked down stuff is from the coons. You can see there's one they didn't get entirely. They're pretty much out of here now. Maybe this, you can see this, the green one down. That's probably more recent. But a lot of this was when the corn was nice and juicy. Now that's starting to dry down pretty good. Seems that they're staying out of here, so that's good. But yeah, it doesn't, this whole corner pretty much got destroyed. Right here's one that the coons must have tried ripping open or something. I'm gonna count this. This right here is probably one of the bigger ones in this field, and it's about 45 up and down and 18 around. Pretty nice one. Well, here we are. Here's the next plot. This is that long, skinny, narrow, it used to be a trail for us, but it was probably about as wide as a road, if not a little wider down at the end. So the last 3 years we've been planting it as a food plot. First year we did it, it was beans. Last year was brassicas. Now it's corn. So next year it'll be something else, or maybe half and half. Who knows? Yeah, I got this corn. I pretty much double planted most of this field because I knew it would be, you know, I guess here's a 38-inch row, but these are all tight rows going this way. But a little bit of coon damage in this plot as well, but not nearly as bad. It gets pretty good sunlight here, but I'm still pretty surprised how well this stuff grew considering how small of an area this is. You can see right here is the ditch, and over here is the edge. So it's literally that small. Bad thing is there's a lot of cobs like this that are just eaten like halfway. Some of them are gone like that one, but a lot of them are completely gone. That's probably from like a smaller raccoon that, you know, doesn't weigh enough to rip the stalk down, where some of these ones are down, those stalks. Close to 11, maybe even 12 feet tall, some of these ones right here. Pretty good cob size. Look at that. Like I said, a lot of them are chewed on, which kind of sucks. And then once you get over here, the corn gets a lot shorter. I think it's mainly just because the soil here is a little bit drier than what it is right on the edge there. Plus, the weeds kind of came in a little better here. Yeah, this stuff's starting to dry down pretty good. But as you can tell, I mean, look at, there's a plant here, nothing. And then there's a lot of really big gaps in here. So that's why I almost gotta double plant everything next year. Otherwise, I'm kind of just screwed myself. Because the corn can definitely grow, you know, when it's planted in 20-inch rows or whatever. All right, on to the next plot. Okay, so this area right here, I actually didn't upload a video of planting this year, just simply because it was basically a food plot failure. I mean, it's not a failure, but I had so many other videos to edit and everything, I never really got a chance to kind of compile the footage for this one. You can see this end down here, basically here over is good with the corn, but it flooded out shortly after we planted, and it kind of killed out a lot of the corn, and that's kind of where I replanted some of the brassicas. And you can see I got some good looking beans right along the edge here, but there was a lot of bare spots in them too. So I came back in, and after I sprayed a second time, I broadcasted a ton of these brassicas in, and look at the size of these things. These are like basically knee-high right now. I think I planted those in early July, so that's why they're so big. Here's some tillage radish. You know, we got the forage rape and kales and purple top turnips and a little bit of everything. You can see right here's a turnip. Pretty good size. That'll probably be like a softball by the end of the year. Just some really nice looking brassicas in there. Anyways, back to the corn and beans. These beans are just loaded. The corn's pretty good too. This is all really wet ground, so we actually just no-tilled all this. We didn't even work it in, and there's no fertilizer applied to any of this at all, so looks pretty good. Next year I think I'm going to come back in and work it all up and throw fertilizer in. Maybe I'll only do that every other year because it's so wet, like I said. This year we could have worked it up. We probably should have, because I don't know if it's going to be that dry next year. It was pretty dry this spring when we put this in. And I got brassicas mixed throughout the whole corn plot here too. You can see I put these brassicas in the same day I put in the ones out there by the beans. Yeah, this is going to be another little 1 acre food plot with a little bit of everything: corn, beans, and brassicas. See, this corn is a little greener than the other stuff. Yeah, looks pretty good. Luckily in this plot, as small as it is, it's probably only about 1/3 of an acre of corn. It may seem bigger than that, but luckily we had like hardly any, I haven't seen hardly any coon damage in this field, so that's really good. They're just kind of hanging around the bigger fields, so that's fine. And then right up here is where I got my replanted brassicas that just kind of filled in with a bunch of weeds. There is brassicas out there, but that was all corn. You can see the corn I left way along the edge of the alfalfa field over there. So there's a little bit of corn on that side too, but this is the better side. But like I said, this was all corn, and this area flooded out. There's a few stalks here and there, but I just ended up disking it up and replanting it into brassicas. See, I'm just standing in brassicas right here too. All right, on to the next plot. Well, this right here There's the food plot on the hill here. This is probably the first or second area of soybeans I planted, I think. Actually, I'm not sure. But you can tell it's all starting to turn yellow. I got this stuff put in pretty thick, maybe a little too thick. I actually, I remember I broadcasted a few out here, and then I hand drilled with the 1-row push planter, because it just was kind of, I thought it would have been kind of hard to get the planter up here, the 2-row corn planter. I think next year I'm gonna come in here and I'm gonna put in winter rye really heavy, and next year when the winter rye comes back, I'm just gonna broadcast it, crush all the winter rye, and just no-till the soybeans into this spot, because it's kind of on a slope here, and it's just kind of hard to disc this, and it's probably not good for it because it's not as good a ground. It dries out faster. But yeah, these beans did produce pretty decent. I did put in a lot of fertilizer here too, now that I remember. But yeah, this is just a really tiny little spot. Down there's where the bigger field is. I'll take you there next. That'll be the last plot we look at. Well, here we are. We're at the last plot now. This is that plot where I left that little rectangle you can see there of brassicas. You can see all the brassicas starting to come up a little bit. The top here is beans, and beans wrapped along the edge of the corn on the other side, which you can't see right now. Primarily, most of the field's corn again. Last year we even had more corn. I think next year I want to do a lot of beans in this field. I might do a little bit of corn, but I'll probably primarily be beans and brassicas next year, just to kind of rotate it. But man, this plot always produces probably some of the best looking corn. I put beans along the top because I know the corn, when we had corn all the way up here last year, it didn't do that good. You can see a few plants of corn right there that just dried up. It's just a little too dry. I mean, you can grow corn up here, but it really doesn't turn into much. Brassicas are all coming up. So down here by the corn, you can see this is what I was talking about. Like I said, I planted most of the corn. Here's a 38-inch row. There's a pretty tight row, maybe 15 inches. 38-inch row, you can see it's really wide. Tight row. Another 38-inch row. But next year I'm going to plant pretty much everything. I'm going to double plant it all. You can see right here, tight row, pretty tight row. This one's a little wider, but on the average they're probably close to 20, anywhere from 15 to 25 inches. And you can see this corn, when you get in here, a little smaller ears, but my plant population will be a lot higher, so I should be able to yield more off of a smaller sized area. Unlike over here, here's some coon damage. You can see here's a wide row, and these ears, I mean, maybe a hair bigger, but not really too much bigger considering it's a lot wider row. Right here's a pretty thick area too. Looks like I double planted this spot. See, the rows are pretty thick. Another good thing about this is when you plant this thick, you get the canopy closure a lot faster. It's a lot better on the weed control. You can see there's hardly any weeds down here. And then when you move over to a wide row like this, I mean, there's a few more weeds, but this plot overall, we've done pretty good weed control. It's mainly just a lot of grass that comes up. And some of our other plots, we got a lot of that water hemp. And planting thick like this will probably help that, because that stuff is really hard to kill with the Roundup. Right here is the small section in the plot where I ended up doing like 2 rows of corn and 2 rows of beans. Kind of like mixed them together here in this small section. You can see the beans ended up doing pretty decent, I'd say. Got a decent amount of pods and good height on them. Earlier in the year when they were shorter, I did see a lot more deer browse. You can see a little bit of deer browse here. But there was definitely more deer browse in the beans mixed with the corn versus the beans right out in the open right there. Probably because they just wanted to be, stay in the cover and browse on them. But I guess you can still see a lot of browse on here. Not a ton of browse, obviously, but definitely some browse. A lot of our bean plots have been pretty much browse free this year, which is kind of surprising. Well, thanks for watching the video. If you guys made it through the whole thing, I know it's probably a pretty long video. I've been talking a while out here. I don't want to make a 30-minute video. Anyways, yeah, a lot of my brassica videos will be coming out soon, within the next week or two. I'll be having a winter rye video when I seed in the winter rye up there, and another soybean area too. So yeah, keep checking back for more videos, and yeah guys, catch you next time.